Hello and welcome to Deep State Radio. I'm David Rothkopf, and I'm joined by our friends, guides, and mentors, Rosa Brooks of Georgetown University Law Center. How are you doing, Rosa?
I'm excellent, David. Happy
Thank you.
Epstein Files Day.
Epstein Files Day. Every day is Epstein Files Day, Rosa. It has been for 10 years of us doing these podcasts. And Ed Luce, who, Rosa, I don't know if you noticed this. But Ed is somehow on the inside of the inside. Because, he's like one of
I've
those
always
journalists.
suspected that
No, no, he is.
the
But like
deepest deep state.
this morning, I pick up my newspaper. Well, metaphorically, I don't actually get newspapers. And there's an article in the FT saying the Epstein files are not going away. And tick fucking tock. What do you know? An hour later, they're back. What did you know, Ed? What did you
Uh,
know?
this is the thing. I didn't know or need to know anything more than what anyone else knows, even though I wasn't aware that this dump was about to come um, this morning from the House Oversight Committee. It's just kind of obvious the government shutdown's ending. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's a very unlikely and very temporary person that I'm wishing all the best to, um, is not going away either. And she's got the bit between her teeth, and I think she can read MAGA since she's pitching for post-Trump MAGA leadership. I think she can read MAGA pretty well. So my conclusion was before any of this came out that this is good timing with the government shutdown ending to remind Trump that Epstein's not going away.
Uh, yeah, Rose, I was on a somebody else's podcast earlier today because that's really what I do. I don't actually exist. I live in the
You don't
matrix.
exist in
The
real life. You just exist on
not in
screen.
exactly streaming Dave, but I was thinking, there've been a lot of great sleaze bags in history. Henry VIII. Sorry, so sorry, Ed. But
I'm glad
Bluebeard.
you've cast back for royalty in times past.
Well, that's true. We have Prince Andrew, but there's
But
Bluebeard.
we have the Andrew formerly known as the Prince.
Yeah,
Yes,
well,
thank you.
that's good. True. What is this? What do we call him? Andrew Windsor or something like that? What is his like name now?
Oh, some Mountbatten, Windsor, Batten von Berg, whatever.
Look, if you're born a prince, you get to have a lot of names. It's one of the
That's good.
prerogatives, perks of royalty is having many, many names.
That's so cool. But in any event, there are all these little sleazebags through history, but none of them were chosen by people to be their leader. But all this stuff about Trump and Epstein, we knew this 10 years ago, and he's been chosen twice. I mean, he's been accused by 24 women of being a sleazebag. He's been found by courts to be liable for his sleazery. He embraces it. He boasts. You can watch him on videotape saying, well, my daughter, she's kind of hot. Or my daughter told me I shouldn't date anybody younger than her, and she was 17 at the time, which was the age of consent in New York. And somehow the American people twice have said, yeah, that's the guy we want to be the face of our nation, the person who represents us to the world. Do you think that has any repercussions internationally as a specialist?
So, to whom are you posing this question, David?
Well, to you,
Oh,
Rosa.
um, you
I spoke to
know,
Ed
uh,
first there. I was trying to go
Nah, I'm
back
sure
and
everybody
forth.
thinks it's fine. I'm sure everybody thinks it's completely normal and fine. And I'm sure
That's
the
the
artist
problem.
formerly known as Prince Andrew thought it was completely normal and fine. I mean, I do think one of just in terms of the domestic dynamic, right, that we have a MAGA is divided between those who are just all in on whatever crass, illegal, horrific brutality and bullying and corruption Trump displays, and those who don't like it, but have managed to come up with, one of the most impressive forms of cognitive dissonance ever, which is, the Lord works through flawed vessels. And yes, this is all yucky and disgusting, but this is just the sometimes that's what the Lord does. He gives you good things in a yucky, disgusting package, and that's just what it is. I mean, but it is pretty mind blowing to me. I I'm old enough to remember when we had debates about character for presidents, and when Republicans thought Bill Clinton didn't have the character needed to be president because of what happened with Monica Lewinsky. With which I personally agree, as a matter of fact. I mean, I think it
Yeah,
was
I was about
disgusting
to
to
say
hear.
maybe a bad example since he's undoubtedly there in the Epstein files, and they were
Yeah, yeah,
probably
yeah.
right. He didn't have the
No,
character.
that's absolutely right. I think, well, and withholding judgment on what Clinton did or didn't do with Jeffrey Epstein and his little pals, what Clinton clearly did do with Monica Lewinsky was exploitative. It was not only, obviously, was he cheating on his wife, the long-suffering Hillary Clinton, but it was incredibly exploitative. It was an abuse of power. In terms of Monica Lewinsky, who is very, very young. She's above the age of consent, legally speaking, but the power differential between the president of the United States and I forget what she was, 21, 22, 23, an intern in the White House was stunning. And you know, that being said, the Republicans lost their shit, right? They completely lost their shit. They impeached him for that. And, you know, he was already in office, and they tried to impeach him for that. And they said correctly that character should be somewhat relevant to whether you're suited to be the president of the United States. I think in terms of the international impact, I just your question is it's I know your question is kind of a rhetorical question, David. Like, does
Yeah,
the
it
rest of
was
the
a little
world
bit.
respect us for having elected Donald Trump not once but twice? Well, actually, the answer to that one would be a big resounding no, and the Epstein files are kind of the least of it.
Yeah, well, that's true. But the Epstein files are linked to your broader issue, which is that character does matter. And when people have deeply flawed character or are criminals or are sexual predators and criminals and serial liars, it does matter. But Ed, apropos of MTG, um, you know, one thing that strikes me here is that the Republicans were willing to hold their nose and defend Donald Trump so long as they felt that he was the ticket. That if you were going to go and you wanted to be in Republican politics, you needed to back Donald Trump. But of course, now he's 80 years old. He's a lame duck. He's losing it. He's not going to be able to help them. The last election a week ago showed that he's pretty badly thought of. The next election may render him completely irrelevant. And isn't this just, I mean, and unfortunately for Donald Trump, the Epstein thing and a bunch of others, his corruption, linger. And at a certain point, it'll become convenient for a variety of people in the GOP to say, huh, maybe we made a misjudgment there. Isn't this just the kind of a crack that is like the political clock going tick tock?
I mean, it could be, and so I'm very careful to pass, what I hope is analysis from wishful thinking in my head. I mean, I think if you're going to pick up on Rosa's very good Clinton point, I think there's clearly a through line there between Clinton and Trump, which is the American people didn't sort of downgrade Clinton's approval ratings because of Monica Lewinsky, not much and not for long. And in Trump's first term, none of these revelations really downgraded him. I think partly because people don't expect much from their leaders, including integrity, but partly because the economies were good in the late 90s and for most of Trump's first term. But it isn't now. And whilst I can't see MAGA fully turning on Trump, really, almost under any circumstances, it's cultist. I do think that Trump is losing control of his succession, of nominating who his replacement will be, and that is a key. It's his ultimate insurance to leave office, knowing that he'll be safe. And if he can't fully control, the naming his successor, Well, that's a loss of quite a lot of power, and his right now his most brazen challenger is the ultra Trumpian Marjorie Taylor Greene. So
She's
we're
lost her
beginning to
way.
see,
She's lost her
she's
way.
lost her way. She used to be a good sort, and now she's wandering in the desert. But she's not. Well, I was about to say she's not stupid. She is, of course, stupid. I don't want to be rhetorical here.
No, I mean, she's, stupid like a fox. I don't know that she's stupid at all, actually, right? She may be a great deal smarter than the rest of us in terms of the degree of power and influence she's gaining.
I think you can be cunning and stupid.
Okay.
You can inhabit contradictions.
You
Yeah,
can
well,
contain multitudes.
yeah, or
That's
at
what I was
least
searching for. Contain multitudes. Yes.
right, or at least two things. Contains at least two things. But it's probably pretty bad, Rosa, for Venezuela. I mean, there's like an aircraft carrier sitting off the coast of Venezuela,
I thought you were going to
and
somehow connect Jeffrey Epstein, Bill Clinton, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Venezuela.
yeah, I am.
Okay,
I
okay,
am
good. I hope
absolutely
so.
doing that. I'm
I hope
saying
so.
like Donald Trump is sitting there going, "Oh Christ, what do I do now to
Maybe we need
distract
to
from
invade a
this?"
country.
And somebody's going to go, "Yeah, Gerald Ford is sitting off the coast of Venezuela, along with another 15% of the assets of the U.S. Navy. That's a good distraction. That's a
The
wag
poor
the dog
Venezuelans,
scenario."
they must be so confused. I probably not quite as confused as Nigerians. They're really confused because we also seem to be making vague noises about, maybe needing to invade Nigeria, which has got to be like totally baffling to the Nigerians as well as quite unsettling. But
I
yeah, I
found that
mean,
pretty baffling. I found it pretty bad. Do you think somebody just like bumped into him at the Gatsby party and
and they
said,
said
"Oh, those
Nigeria
Nigerians"?
bad. Yeah, it's very peculiar. But yes, that does seem to be the Trumpian decision-making style is that somebody bumps into you or you happen to catch, 30 seconds of something on Fox or whatever, and next thing you know, you're invading Nigeria. It's just the way it works. We often find ourselves invading other countries just because. Um, I mean, and indeed, I am not joking. We do often find
Rosa,
ourselves.
that is why the rest of the world is reassured, because it's only after such rigorous interagency processes that any
Right.
kind of kinetic action takes place.
Right, right. Rigorous process involving spur of the moment, random decision making late at night, after a bunch of cheeseburgers and a lot of TV. Um, but everybody has to have their own process here, and that some people just process things that way. Um, the it's mind-boggling, right? I mean, the let's look at another example of an U.S. launched war that was devoid of legal justification would be the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003. We all saw it coming. Um, at least that, and I sort of hesitate to like give any credit to Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld, but who clearly, and the evidence is quite clear in hindsight, knew they were at best fudging the evidence and at worst knew perfectly well that they had said, wink, 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 give me the evidence I need, and that it was probably pretty bogus, the evidence of supposed WMD in Saddam Hussein's possession and collusion between Saddam Hussein and Al Qaeda. Um, but that at least had some sort of theoretical link to an actual security threat to the United States. I mean, it was, as it turns out, it was made up. But at least in theory, they made some effort to pretend it had a link to a genuine security threat to the United States. With Venezuela, it's not even really clear that they're doing that. With Nigeria, they're certainly not doing that, right? I mean, it all of a sudden, the various sort of rhetorical moves and maybe legal moves, though we don't really know what their legal moves are because they don't want to tell us. It's all a secret. But the rhetorical moves from metaphoric war on drugs to, yeah, drugs are really bad, to we're going to kill a bunch of people in boats, to heck, maybe we should invade Venezuela is really sort of bewildering. I'm still struggling a bit to see how this makes any sense whatsoever. Yes, there's the wag the dog theory of oopsie doopsie, Epstein files are released. Maybe this would be a really good moment to have a little war. But here are, one thing MAGA does not like. They do not seem to like people who are pedophiles, which, I'm with them on that one. Another thing they do not seem to like, and I'm kind of with them on this too, is reckless foreign interventions for no particular reason. So I don't quite see what Trump gets out of this. Yes, it's distracting, but not necessarily in a good way.
Then we've been doing this a long time, and I just am constantly buoyed and elevated by your innocence, your bright-eyed innocence, looking for a rationale, looking for it all to make sense. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. You know who else is lucky? I mean, if the Venezuelans are unlucky, Ed, Chuck Schumer, he's lucky, or is he lucky? Maybe this was all politically calculated. But like there were 8 Democrats who were getting the crap kicked out of them 48 hours ago for folding on this thing. And all of a sudden now everybody's talking about it. I go to the New York Times and the Republicans apparently just released 20,000 more Epstein memos, which undoubtedly are all about Bill Clinton. But anyway, what do you think about the good fortune of Chuck Schumer?
Yeah, well, I mean, you've got to be lucky in politics to survive, and I imagine he will exploit this luck. Um, I mean, I think the Republicans, Comer's decision to release these is a measure. However, skewed they are towards Democrats who were Epstein associates. It's a measure of the pressure on them because I don't think it's Trump requesting anything to be released. He wants this dead and buried, and he keeps saying, "You still talking about Epstein?" And Marjorie Taylor Greene has some sway, even though there are only 4 Republicans allegedly for this petition, a discharge petition. I think she speaks for more than 4. I think she reflects a much larger part of the base, and the base, no doubt, have this totemic attachment to the Epstein files, partly because of their conspiratorialism, but partly because they believe they really do exist and they really will damage liberals. There's a conflation here between how MAGA sees the Epstein files and the original Comet Pizza sort of vision of what the deep state gets up to. Which, it's going to be very hard to dispel. It's so central to sort of MAGA theology. And more powerful for the fact that, some of this is true. There really has been a cover-up for Epstein, and there hasn't been accountability for the system that protected this man. So, I mean, Schumer, yeah. How can we, sustain anger or energy against Schumer if that's the sort of direction when there's this to think about? This is just such a different scale, and probably the shutdown is now serving Democrats politically, and they will get some momentum. Problem is, I don't think Schumer's capable of prosecuting that momentum, probably wouldn't want to sustain it.
They're not going to get anything out of it.
I doubt Schumer. I mean, he ought to be making it a cause célèbre, his own. I doubt he'll do that.
They're not going to get anything out of it. But, the flip side of all that, and by the way, they do say the deep state goes to Comet Pizza. I've never been to Comet Pizza. You guys, I've never been. I did once have dinner with Ed next door to Comet Pizza.
I once, for my sins, had to host a birthday party for a whole bunch of, 12-year-olds at Comet Pizza.
See, that supports all.
And there were no pedophiles in sight, but I will tell you there were a lot of shrieking, giggling adolescents running around and chasing each other.
Glad that phase of my life has passed. It does, however, raise another question, which I think is important. I think it's, we don't normally talk about these things, but this is significant as it pertains to power in the most powerful country in the world. There are a bunch of people, Democrats, who are like, release the Epstein files, release the Epstein files. And yet every time I read the Epstein files, I go, yeah, I knew that 15 years ago. So what is it that they think is actually going to happen, Rosa? I mean, the Epstein files could contain pictures of pedophilia, and it would not be surprised. In fact, there's a guy out there who said that he's seen the pictures. And so we know this is all real. Why are people harping on this? Why do they think that the thing that has not brought him down in 25 years is going to bring him down next week?
You mean why are Democrats harping on it as opposed to why are the MAGA folks harping on it?
Well, MAGA, Democrat, but Democrats I meant particularly.
I mean,
it's naive, isn't it?
On the MAGA side, it's the same Comet Pizza conspiracy theory. It's the QAnon craziness of the entire world is run by a pedophile ring, and we just have to wait for the ultimate evidence to be revealed, which, I don't think it is. I do not think the entire world is run by a vast pedophile ring, although I think Jeffrey Epstein is a creep, and a whole lot of powerful men were also creeps, Democrats and Republicans. And I hope they all have their reputations thoroughly tarnished. Why do people on the left have this fantasy that this will be the thing? Because people enjoy wishful thinking, right? I mean, I think you're absolutely right that why would there's nothing new here. We already knew that Trump was a sexual predator. We already knew that Trump, at a bare minimum, has made all kinds of inappropriate comments relating to underage women. So, is there more there? Would it shock anybody in the entire universe? I don't think so. I don't think it would shock the MAGA people either, because they know all this stuff too, right? And they either don't care because they're all in on, go pedophilia, corruption, venality, and general evilness, or because they believe that, flawed vessels, that's the way it goes. But yeah, I do think this is a little bit of a tangent, but I genuinely wonder, I truly wonder, and I wish some of our ace reporters would pose this question to some hardcore MAGA people. When the New York Times does their little focus groups, I wish they would ask this question of people who are Trump supporters or hardcore Trump supporters. I always wonder, what if anything would change their mind? Is there anything that Trump could do that would change their mind? And because so far it seems like the answer to that is no, and maybe that's consistent with the broken vessel, the flawed vessel theory, right? That it doesn't matter, that they're perfectly willing to accept that he is a disgusting specimen of a human being, and that nothing would surprise them. But that's not why they're voting for him. But I feel like, for me, I think for most normal people, even the political leaders who I admire most, when they have done disgusting things, my support for them has gone down, right? I mean, Bill Clinton, that was pretty appalling. And it didn't seem that complicated to say so. And I can think of plenty of other things where Democratic politicians have done things that I've been appalled by, and I've thought, I'm really disappointed. That's a terrible thing. And it does seem, I do just find it genuinely kind of baffling, Trump's resilience. And I do always wonder, is there anything, what do you think? I mean, is there anything that, or is it just that nobody believes anything anymore? Everything is fake news. Why is he so resilient? It is baffling.
Ed?
Okay, I think I have a slightly different interpretation of this. I think there is a reason why he's doing everything possible to suppress any association. I'm not suggesting that he abused underage girls, or that there's any evidence for that. Maybe there's some prima facie things pointing to it being, it was something that wouldn't surprise us. But there is a reason why he's trying to bury this, and he's got Mike Johnson, he's got Kash Patel, he's got Pam Bondi, all of them doing everything possible to block any further revelations about this. And he had 1,000 FBI agents, the DOJ did, the FBI did earlier this year, going through their evidence, and it took them days. And they were looking for Trump's name. And Pam Bondi was a few weeks later forced to admit that yes, Trump's name was there, but there's nothing there. Trust me, we're not releasing anything. And anybody who hints at releasing anything is Trump's enemy. That's got to tell us something.
What?
I mean,
What does it tell?
there's
What does it tell us?
kleptocracy going on. He's not pretending to hide. He's not suppressing anything. He doesn't suppress like demolishing the East Wing. I mean, he's not particularly shy of all the other crimes he's permitting. But I do think, and I think this does say something about the median opinion out there, even amongst maybe some MAGA, but that the American public as a whole would treat this totally differently to a Stormy Daniels revelation, or even saying something creepy about his daughter. If he's helping cover up the crimes of his former friend, very close friend, Jeffrey Epstein, I think that would cross a line for most of America in a way that the other stuff about Trump didn't.
Huh.
You know, it's interesting. I mean, it's possible. I think there's something else also sort of underlying a lot of what Trump is doing these days, Rosa, which this may seem again tangential, but I've been struck by in the course of the past 3, 4 weeks, how many stories I've read about Trump wanting different buildings named after him. He wants the Washington football stadium named after him. He wants the Kennedy Center named after him. He wants the new ballroom named after him. He wants statues of himself put up. I personally, I'll give you conspiracy theories. I think he's less well than he says he is, and I think he's thinking a lot about mortality. But I also think he's at that point in his life where he's thinking about reputation. And the reality, I mean, there was also a move among
Seems
Republicans
a little
to
late
name.
to start thinking about that.
No, I understand, but there's a move among Republicans to name Dulles Airport after him. And I think that one of the things that this thing lingering out there would do is ensure that there isn't, a water treatment plant in Birmingham, Alabama, named after him.
Oh, there should be.
Well, that's true. I mean, yeah, I guess, we do have all sorts of things named after.
We should name every sewer in the country after him.
Well, I don't know, Rosa. I just think, that he's at the end of the line. This is late stage Trump. And I think we are seeing a variety of things that are related to late stage Trump.
Boy, I'm trying to decide if late stage, Trump with ever advancing cognitive decline and ever advancing desperation not to pass his final years in a prison cell, um, means that things are going to get better or get worse. I have a bad feeling it means they're going to get worse. I don't.
I'm afraid you're right.
Because I don't see in a different man. A desire to secure his legacy might involve becoming kind of statesmanlike and nice and generous and saying things like, I am a president for all the American people, not just the ones who voted for me, and I care, and it's just a little hard to see Donald Trump suddenly turning into a nice guy, no matter what. So yeah, I don't, you may be right. He certainly is acting even more bonkers than usual, and not to speak of, falling asleep in the Oval Office and so forth. But I can't see this going anywhere good.
That we are entering kind of the year of what could be really truly at the beginning of the end of Trump. If he loses in November, and one senator said the other day to one of our colleagues, 8% difference between Republicans and Democrats will translate into 35-seat swing in the House. All we're going to do for 2 years is have investigations into this stuff, and there will be no achievements of the Trump administration, and it's not a zero possibility that he will actually get impeached again, because this corruption stuff is just so over the top. What do you expect from the decline and fall of Donald Trump?
So I mean, I know I'm not the swing vote here. Still, there's some Solomonic middle way person, but I agree with Rosa here. This makes him more dangerous. He knows exactly what's at stake next November. Um, and I don't think he's looking to, Mount Rushmore at this point. I think he's got deeper dread and fears and nightmares somewhere in the recesses of his subconscious that will lead him to do pretty much anything to within reach, legal or illegal, to that he's able to do to prevent that scenario. I've got a. I mean, this might be just PTSD from watching Trump over the last God knows how many years,
No, I think I
almost
look.
eternity, I think.
Well, you're right. I agree with you. And in fact, I say to our producer Joe Vitale, who's producing this thing, we should call this episode "Late Stage Donald Trump is Scarier Than Ever," because I think it's scarier than ever. Okay, I've got one last question here in our tightly conceived 30-minute long podcast here. Rosa, today, as we speak,
As
the
we speak.
last penny is being minted by the United States. There will be no more pennies.
Yeah, I'm kind of okay with that. I mean, of the many crimes committed by Donald Trump, like murder of the penny, low on my list of priorities. Pennies are kind of annoying, let's face it. We've all been annoyed by them for decades now.
Okay. Anti-penny. Do you have any last reflections? I mean, do they still have pennies in the UK, Ed?
I've been just sort of waving my contactless card around, for so long now, that I don't even know the answer to that question. There's almost nothing that doesn't, you can't just wait, like you want to get a tube fare, one stop on the tube, you wave your card. I mean, when do you actually get cash out?
I don't think
I
anybody
don't know the
does.
answer, but I don't, there are probably more traditionalists. Well, I don't know whether that's true, but I think I'd know about it if they got rid of the penny, because there would have been some kind of traditionalist, oh, the world's coming to an end. It's not like in my day kind of reaction to the penny going. Britain does
I'm
have it.
okay if
It's
you want to get rid of
stalwarts.
the nickel and the dime too. Not the
Me
quarter, because
too.
we like quarters, but nickels and dimes don't do us any good either.
I don't know, because I like to carry really large amounts of cash, incognito across borders. I'd rather they kept the $100 bill.
I
How do you
remember
feel about
once
gold
being in.
bars? Do you have a collection of gold bars?
I've actually I didn't succeed, but I tried without. No, I didn't try, but I've seen those gold ATMs, gold bar ATMs in the Gulf, and I just thought, what a funny world it would be if I could just withdraw a gold bar.
Yeah, right,
Well,
right, right. And
yeah.
then you just
But were
shave
you
off a
ever
little bit.
tempted? Did you ever like buy a lot of gold because you thought the world was going to hell?
Me or Rosa?
Yes, you.
No, no, and I've never touched Bitcoin. I mean, to be fair, if I'd like put everything I've got, which isn't much, in gold and Bitcoin in January, I would now be trying to buy Montserrat.
Well,
Yes.
if I were not so lazy, I would absolutely be a prepper, convinced as I am of the pending apocalypse. Um,
Rosa, Rosa,
but
you
my,
move to Wyoming, you build a
well,
house
my,
in a silo in
but
the
I don't
middle
really
of
have any
nowhere.
canned
You
goods. I
are
have
a
hardly
prepper.
any
You're
canned
a
goods.
prepper.
I don't have
Well,
any
okay,
gold
you're
bars. I have
not.
no canned goods because it's really boring to buy canned goods and figure out where to put them. And I'm concerned about my gold bars and how I'm going to spend them during the apocalypse. I don't know if anybody's really going to want them. So I am worried about this because I do know I've heard many people tell stories of their relatives' narrow escape from the Holocaust, etc., because they had some, gemstones sewn into the hems of their garments or gold bars in a safe deposit box. And um, so I'm a little worried about the fact that I don't have any gold and I don't even have any candles. I don't even have spare batteries for my flashlight, for God's sake. It's embarrassing. So I make a kind of a crappy prepper, but I support prepping.
No, that's I think that you've landed exactly correctly. You are a prepper, but you're just not a good prepper.
I'm a
And by the way, my
call me prepper.
grandpa and my grandpa and my grandma with my dad, who was a little boy, escaped the Nazis. They were desperately poor people their whole lives. My grandfather worked in a factory where they made brushes for clothing, and he hollowed out the back of a brush and he put 3 gold rings in it. And they had 3 gold rings, and they went across the border to Italy, and they got into steerage on a boat, and they got to the U.S., and that was all they had. 3 gold rings in the back
Where
of the
did they
boat.
get change for their gold rings when they got to the U.S.?
Well,
The
fortunately, he had a
logistics of
brother.
this are puzzling to me.
Fortunately, he had a brother in the U.S. who came years earlier to be a grocery store guy,
Okay,
and
all right.
weirdly, at the end of Prohibition, this grocery store guy owned a bunch of liquor stores. I, who knew? I mean, just how did that happen? We don't know. But somehow he was able to help them through their adjustment.
Hmm.
Okay, that's far too much revealing of our truths here. Rosa frequents Comet Pizza. Ed covets buying gold bars, and my great uncle was probably a little corrupt. In any event, it's good to talk to you guys, and we'll be back with more of this on all the podcasts we do around here. And if you're watching it streaming on YouTube and whatever, do me a favor, like subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's where the fastest growth right now is
So
people
that we
watching
can
this.
buy gold bars. How are we going to buy
Yeah,
gold bars if people won't
well,
subscribe?
there is something about YouTube, which is unlike other social media platforms, it's easy to monetize. If we ever got up to decent numbers, there would be ads. It would be good.
David, have
We
you
would stop
considered
having to ask you
adding
for money.
DSR
Yeah.
branded gold bars to the swag store? There's another possibility. Our listeners probably
Well,
would like
you're
a
very old
DSR.
fashioned. Ed will now tell you that what we should have is DSR meme coins.
That
No, I
for
wouldn't. No,
sure.
I was about to suggest granola power bars. That's what you need when the world ends. Those are the only
I
bars
thought
that are
it
going
was
to help.
booze and ammunition
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely, yeah.
and
Right.
granola bars. Oh, granola bars.
But you
Okay.
need to eat before
You
you
need to
can shoot people up, as
right.
Marx didn't
Very
say.
Please, folks, this is not prepper advice. Go to some right wing. This just proves you do not want to listen
Yeah,
to left wingers about prepping. We
definitely
just don't
not.
know what we're talking about.
Granola bars and self-defense courses.
And arugula.
Right. Yeah.
Pepper spray. Pepper spray, definitely.
Yeah. And the other thing you need is scented candles.
Definitely. Avocado toast. Where is the avocado
Because
toast?
you're going to be really stressed out when the world ends.
And it'll calm you
Yeah.
down
Totally.
completely. Yeah. No.
Totally.
Yeah.
Lavender and rose.
We should do the Lefty Prepper Handbook. I think that's we could.
Oh man.
Our next big
Good
money
one.
make our next big money making venture. Anyway, everybody, what a world. If it were easier, simpler, made more sense, then we wouldn't have been doing this for the past 10, 12 years. But it's not. So we'll keep doing it, and we'll see you the next time. Until then, bye-bye.